Welcome to the Denise Gary Show, ladies and gentlemen. It's just great to have with us today Philip HANEY, former Department of Homeland Security intelligence official. This is a man that knows all about Islamic terrorism, studied the terror networks here in the United States, all the way back to the Middle East. Philip HANEY, I want to thank you for coming on the broadcast today. You are a whistleblower. You've been watching these hearings today and the impeachment process. I want to start with the impeachment process. So I understand that the Democrats are now wanting, based on what I understand, to charge the president with two articles of impeachment. First, that Trump abused the power of his office. Secondly, that the president obstructed the congressional investigation into alleged wrongdoing. Philip HANEY, let's talk about alleged Trump abuse of power. I'm not aware of any abuse of power, but I want you to correct me. I mean, you've worked for the Department of Homeland Security. You've had extremely high security clearances. You know what it's all about back in Washington, D.C. Is it abusing one's power to use foreign aid as leverage in trying to secure the kinds of policies that a president may think is necessary for the national security of the United States?
No, especially when the House passed legislation in the 2013-14 Congress specifically authorizing the president to do exactly what you just said.
Right.
Which is in the look into abuse in Ukraine. Now, it went to the Senate, was read twice on the floor, was never passed through the Senate, but nonetheless, the House and the Senate both have known very well since 2013-14 that Ukraine was one of the most corrupt places on the planet, and they gave the president specific authority related to foreign aid to do exactly what President Trump did.
Exactly. And I think about, abuse of power and Obama, the Obama administration, former President Obama, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I think about all those conservative groups that tried to become involved in political organizations that wouldn't be tax exempt. The IRS targeted Obama's political opponents. You remember the case where President Obama was talking to a Russian official. I believe it was the former president of Russia, but he was caught on a hot mic saying, I'm going to have a lot more flexibility just as soon as I get through the election. You think about Hillary Clinton being begged by the late and former Ambassador Stevens of Libya. Calling upon the State Department day after day for backup to protect his life and the lives of Americans in Benghazi, Libya. No backup ever arrived. In fact, it was denied. Can you speak to a real abuse of power, sir, that you've maybe even witnessed under the Obama administration?
How about allowing individuals with known connections to known terrorist groups to come into the country?
That's perfect.
That's a good one. Start with that.
That's perfect. No vetting of individuals coming from states that are largely failed nation states that promote and support terrorism. I'm thinking about Iran. Does that plane load of cash that landed in Iran, does that seem like an abuse of power that funded?
No, I don't think so. I think that's something we do every day, right? The president did. $150 billion of stacks of cash.
Right. Taxpayer dollars.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that happens every day.
Well, it was actually interest on money that we had seized. The technicality of it all is one thing. The process of it and how it was done is a whole other thing. And, forcing through, how about Obamacare? Was that an abuse of a power? We have to pass the bill before we even can find out what's in it.
Yes, Nancy.
I'd say that's pretty abusive.
Yeah, I think so too. And the second charge that the Democrats are hoping that will stick to the president is obstructing a congressional investigation. I don't know how the president obstructed an investigation. The man is the president of the United States. He can claim executive privilege under the law. Do I have that right? Is that obstruction to claim executive privilege, Philip?
It's DOA. That one's not going to survive any kind of scrutiny legally, because their claim that he didn't cooperate with Congress was based on the fact that he was requesting due process.
Right.
And that's a question for the courts to decide whether he was required to provide the information that they asked him for. If he would have just handed it over, that would have been a breach of the checks and balances form of government. It's a case for the court. And I'm pretty darn sure they're going to rule on the side of the executive branch. So basically, I don't know if you heard this large popping sound yesterday morning when they did the press conference. That was the balloon popping of the impeachment. Yeah, because
okay.
it's over.
You think it's over?
Yes, it's over. It's a pop.
So you don't believe that, sir? Are you saying you don't believe there's going to be a vote on impeachment going forward now?
No, they'll vote. They're
Okay.
bound to, but they're going to, for their own reasons, their own ideological blindness. They very likely will vote, and they do have a majority, and that's the point of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked before about the editorial I wrote called "Impeachment is the Paradox of Liberty." And it is. Mm-hmm. And they have a right to impeach the president for sneezing too many times.
Sure. And
but the rub comes when they go to the next step, when they go to the Senate and they have to have it proven in actual court that what the charges are. That's when it's going to get messy for them, if it even actually goes to trial. Personally, I hope it does. I would like nothing better than to see these people who caused all this trouble have to actually sit in the witness chair and try to explain why they did all this stuff.
Well, I would love to see it too, but I can't help but think about, for example, another thing that keeps coming to my mind is the issue of President Obama using taxpayer dollars, not interest that accrued on assets from Iran, but taxpayer dollars, federal dollars, to undermine a foreign government's election process. You know, it was all over the news in Israel and here in the United States that Obama was undercutting Prime Minister Netanyahu and his run for re-election to be the next Prime Minister of Israel. I mean, I think about that. I think about how the Obama administration leaked top secret information regarding an agreement that Israel had with a foreign country in order to be able to refuel if it was going to go into Iran and take out some of those nuclear reactors that could be used for nuclear weapons to bomb the state of Israel into oblivion. I mean, there are so many instances of abuse of power by the Obama-Clinton administration is just incredible. And then, you know, I think about Hillary destroying all those emails, you know, her phone, her computer. She didn't want anybody to know what was on it. I mean, talk about obstructing a congressional investigation. She never came clean on Benghazi. It's just incredible. Let's move on. So I was looking at some poll numbers before the show today, and based on the poll numbers I'm looking at, apparently the Republicans, 50% have said that the president should not be impeached and removed from office. Now that could also include Democrats and independents, but according to this recent poll that was just released today, 50% said that the president should not be impeached or removed from office, while 45% are calling for impeachment and removal. But what's even more interesting is the survey that was done on independents. And according to the survey on independence, there's a wide 55 to 36% margin. So of independents coming out against impeachment. So that's got to send a message to the Democrats that independents, 55 to 36, are absolutely against impeachment and removal of Trump from office. Your thoughts on that, sir?
They're just bound and determined they're going to follow through with this.
Okay.
They're all in on it.
All right.
I don't think they care at this point. They've already thrown the dice. It's just a matter of a slow motion roll, like in a movie. You know, the dice are rolling across the table.
Yes,
and
but
we're about to see what they come up, and it's going to be snake eyes for them.
I just your best guess as a former expert on the swamp in Washington, do you believe that it's possible that the Democrats really will lose out in the 2020 elections, and a lot of them will lose seats in the House? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're doing everything they can to make sure they lose.
Okay. Okay. All right.
They're helping the president.
Yes.
Because people are fed up with it. Now, if the economy was bad right now, but it's the strongest, practically as strong as it's ever been in the entire history of our country.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't, if we were in a recession or something right now, it'd be a whole different story.
Right.
People would be mad and upset. Mm-hmm. But right now, they're looking at like, what do you guys have to offer that's going to be better than what we have now? They don't. And even some of the Democratic players, the main players in the Democratic Party, including some of the candidates, are admitting there's no way we can win. It's just not, there's no there for them. There's nothing for them to grab a hold of that they're going to be able to equal the battle in the ring once they do finally nominate a candidate. As somebody said today, Trump will eat them alive, and he will. I
want to believe that, and I absolutely hope so. I hope that you're absolutely right. I hope it's a landslide victory for the president and for the Republicans in taking back the House. I want to go to the IG report. That was incredible. Of course, as everyone knows, I've got classes in the morning, but I caught a piece of it before walking out the door. Now, it's my understanding that the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz basically pointed out that there was real corruption by the FBI, that the FBI, officials at the top of the FBI, including the top lawyer for the FBI, a man by the name of Kleinsmith, was literally doctoring FBI documents, saying people like Carter Page, who was involved in helping and assisting the FBI in taking down a corrupt Russian agent, that the FBI and this top lawyer, Kleinsmith, actually doctored all the evidence against people affiliated with President Trump and literally used every means possible to spy on this president when he was a candidate and after he got elected. Am I getting that correct? Can you speak to what, in your mind, was the highlight, or just maybe a couple key highlights from what you gleaned from this IG report, a 476-page report? What stands out most in your mind?
Well, just a little moment. This all happened in about a 9-month period from early to middle 2016 up to the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And you might recall that there was a contest going on who was going to be nominated to be the Republican candidate for president.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And Ted Cruz was a good favorite.
Yes.
And then it began to emerge that Donald Trump might actually become the candidate. And a lot of people had a hard time dealing with that. And so they began to open up an investigation and tied it to the proven fact that there was cyber shenanigans going on between the Russians and not just the RNC, not just the Republican side, but also the DNC. And that before it was all over, a whole cache of emails was hacked on the DNC side. And so they took that as their premise. That's what they talked about today. So this oft-repeated phrase from Michael Horowitz that he could find no substantial evidence of a political bias to open the investigation, the FISA investigation, which allows the federal government to spy on American citizens, meaning surveil them, tap their phones, and so on, emails, was founded on a legitimate reason. Okay, but that's what all the Democrats and the mainstream media were saying endlessly yesterday. It's over. You know, we're all vindicated. James Comey was running around on the mainstream media yesterday saying that this report vindicated everything, that, you know, no harm, no foul, everything's hunky-dory.
But
so
records
today,
today.
It was wild. Today during the hearings, Horowitz was asked, the statement was made, the former FBI director, James Comey, said this week that your report vindicates him. Is that a fair assessment of your report? Horowitz, here's what he said. I think the activities we found here don't vindicate anybody who touched this FISA. That was Horowitz today. The activities we found here don't vindicate anybody who touched it.
And the bottom line here is those people that touched it were Democrats that were spying on President Trump. Was that made clear today?
It was clear today that they committed basic, fundamental, and serious errors during the completion. They committed factual inaccuracies during the procedure review. They failed to follow standard operating procedure, which is called the Woods procedure, to make sure that it's a full and accurate presentation of the facts to the judge. This was a shattering day for them. Of course, I don't know if they listened or not, but it doesn't really matter, because today you should mark down in your calendar the 11th of December 2019 was a spectacular day for the constitutional republic. We actually got to see in action the genius of the founding fathers.
Which is?
The checks and balances form of government, that one branch of government cannot become tyrannical over the people. And the Senate today, in their follow-up questioning with Michael Horowitz, it was devastating. It doesn't vindicate anybody. When they asked him about whether it was political bias or not, Horowitz said, on decisions regarding those FISA matters, not the opening of the original investigation, which had some merit to it. Yes, the Russians were messing around in the cyber world. That's different.
But it sounds like to me the Russians were hacking emails and phones, and they were doing it against the Republicans, and they were doing it against the Democrats. This is what I gather from what you're saying and from what I've heard. The Russians are
everybody's hacking everybody all the time anyway. It's nothing new. They know that.
I get that. But then it was like the FBI, the Democrats, and the people that vote for Democrats spend a lot of money supporting Democrat candidates, that these people at the top of the FBI suddenly had an epiphany and thought, okay, with all this cover that we have from Russia hacking into everybody's campaign, we're going to take it and we're going to run with it. and we're going to use it to twist the record. This Kleinsmith, the top FBI lawyer, according to the IG report, doctored evidence against people that were affiliated with the president, and they used that as cover to spy on President Trump, to do surveillance against President Trump. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I was talking about Carter Page, that lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's one little word, 3-letter word. And what's amazing, ironic to me, that when it's all said and done, these gigantic historical events turn on a small key, a small point. The modifying of the email said that Carter Page was not, N-O-T, a source. By adding that word not, they falsely cast him as a rogue operator, when in fact he was a legitimate source.
He was supporting the FBI. He was doing work on behalf of the FBI.
He was trying to warn them exactly what they were supposedly investigating.
Right. I thought he took down a corrupt Russian agent, from what I gathered. That he was instrumental in actually supporting the national security interests of the United States of America, and in bringing down this corrupt Russian agent, and as a result, his life has been ruined for the last 3 years.
Well, that's his words, and but he was encouraged several times today in the open hearing to sue the FBI.
I hope he does.
Well, that reminded me of what I went through, to be all completely honest with you.
Yeah, I bet it did.
I never really thought about suing anybody, but I'll tell you what, it was a lot of deja vu all over again for me today, because what we heard and saw and what's been going on between the FISA report and the impeachment hearings was a very gnarly dose of deja vu for me, because it was exactly the same kind of stuff that I went through.
Because the Obama administration was so damn corrupt. And they had people in the DOJ, in the FBI, in the CIA. It's like everywhere you turn during the Obama years.
Let's put it in Horowitz. He said this today. We found that investigators, that would mean FBI guys, failed to meet their basic obligations of ensuring that the FISA applications were scrupulously accurate. We identified significant inaccuracies and omissions in each one of the 4 applications, 7 in the very first one, and a total of 17 by the final renewal.
17 errors.
And there were 3 teams involved in this whole process, working simultaneously over about a 9-month period, and they made 17 major errors, all of them in favor of their investigation.
Right. Against the president and against the president of the United States, trying to end his career as president, even then, as he was just, getting started. I just think it is evil, and I'm so pleased that this is finally coming out. What do you think this Durham report that's coming up next?
Oh,
you think that's going to lay everything?
If what today was a double, this is going to be a home run over the fence. I mean,
and what's pathetic is
a bad inning for the Democrats, real bad.
And what's pathetic is, before I left for class this morning, I looked over at CNN and they weren't playing any of this. How are people on the left? How are dirty Democrats even going to know what's going on?
It's the blind leading the blind, and they're both going to fall in the ditch.
Well, I hope so, but it doesn't seem as though that's. I don't know how they're even going to find out unless they tune into Fox News, because Fox
News.
It's
going to be another deal like when Clinton lost and everybody was bursting in tears. Yes, and wringing their hands and screaming in agony.
It's because they only listened to CNN and MSNBC and the liberal left-wing media, so they didn't have a clue what's going on in the real world. And that's what's so scary about it, is there is no fair and balanced reporting on these liberal networks. So Democrats don't have a clue. And then when they realize, people in the FBI, this top FBI lawyer is supposed to be in, his case has already been referred to the Department of Justice. He's expected to spend years in prison.
Yeah, he said today a lawyer at the FBI created a fraudulent evidence chain, altered an email that was used as the basis for a sworn statement to the court, and Horowitz was asked, am I stating that correctly? Horowitz said, that's correct. That is exactly what occurred.
Yes.
So despite what the initial reporting last night or yesterday, maybe Monday, despite the spin that they put on it, they're completely oblivious to what the report really contained, and we ain't seen nothing yet. And then there's Barr. He's going to be like the Cowboys. He's going to be driving them doggies right into the corral.
You've got to love William Barr. I just love them. He's like a one-man army. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit, because I want to talk quickly about President Trump's tweet and, in essence, retweet of King Salman, the king of Saudi Arabia, when the shooters at Pensacola, Florida, at the military base, shot and killed, I believe it was 3 Americans, and injured 12 Americans. Donald Trump said, King Salman of Saudi Arabia just called to express his sincere condolences and give his sympathies to the families and friends of the warriors who were killed and wounded in the attack that took place in Pensacola, Florida. The king said that the Saudi people are greatly angered by the barbaric actions of the shooter, and that this person in no way, shape, or form represents the feelings of the Saudi people who love the American people. And, I know the president means well, but I had to laugh at that. I shared a video, which was a televised clip in Saudi Arabia of a Saudi cleric in a mosque talking about how the Muslims desire to shed blood, smash skulls, sever the limbs for the sake of Allah, to show honor to Allah and to show honor towards the Muslim believers. I mean, talking about jihad and supporting jihad. And these are sermons that go out every Friday in Saudi Arabia and throughout the Middle East. And I wanted to ask you, Philip, is the president's tweet suggesting that the king of Saudi Arabia and the Saudi people really care deeply about this? Is this all about him just still trying to engineer some peace between Muslims in the Arab world and Jews in Israel? Is it about the fact he's going to need Saudi Arabia if things continue to escalate with Iran? Is it about how bad an actor Turkey is and the fact that they're escalating hostility and tension in the Mediterranean? Your thoughts on that, Philip?
Well, even if we give them 100% credit, and that really is how they feel in Saudi Arabia, I'm not really as concerned about how they feel in Saudi Arabia about it as I am how we're going to respond to it here. And Defense Secretary Mark Esper has already taken some steps. They confirmed today that maybe yesterday, they're suspending the flight training for all 852 different Saudi military students in the U.S. They're only going to receive classroom instruction. So they are taking a look at this.
Say that again. They're not going to be given flight instruction, but they're still going to be in the classroom.
Yeah, they are. Plus, they're also confined to base. It doesn't say what other security steps they're going to take. It doesn't say anything about arming or allowing military personnel to be armed on base. Yes, there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yes, there are.
And it doesn't say anything about, it doesn't say very much about the other Saudis that were detained, up to 10, what their current status is right now, where this guy, who else he knows, either here in America or any place else in the world.
Right.
There are a whole bunch of questions that are not being answered.
Mm-hmm.
And that does concern me,
mm-hmm.
Much more than what King Solomon might have said.
Right.
Because I have seen this same pattern too many times before. I call it erasing. It's as though you're writing something on your chalkboard in the classroom, and you have somebody else in the room come in, and they're erasing what you write as fast as you can write it. And that's what I'm concerned about. For example, sadly, we had the shooting attack in New Jersey.
Right.
Also yesterday. And the
have they ever released the names? Have they ever released?
Yeah.
Okay.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
They're apparently, I would guess, I will call them white supremacists or anti-Semite.
Anti-Semites.
And they deliberately targeted a kosher store there in Jersey City.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they crashed a little small tractor through the front window with a couple of cops in it, and that's how they broke in and finally killed him and finally stopped him. The point is, they had a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exactly what you would hope to hear in the conference. This is what happened. Here's who it was. We're going to look into their life. We're going to look at their associations, who their friends were, how they got the stuff, how they made the van, how they made the bomb, everything about their life. We're going to look into it. And what bothers me is that we never seem to see or hear the same kind of reasoned response to whenever it's an Islamic attack.
Exactly.
It's always, we don't know what the motive is, and we're not sure if he was radicalized or it's
what happened to the poor guy?
Time.
What happened to him? Did he have a little instability that day? I mean,
somebody was teasing him about his mustache.
Yeah. Yes, I know. We bend over backwards to play the game. I wanted to say this, and we're going to have to end it on this. I'll give you the last word, but one of the things that I uncovered when I was doing research on white supremacy and Islamic terrorism is that white supremacists and Islamic terrorists work together. I don't know if you're aware of that. I'm sure you are, but I don't know if a lot of other people are aware of that. And I remember talking to some people that were leaders in the Ku Klux Klan, and they would talk about Islamists or terrorists coming to their meetings and wanting to work together to bring down the United States of America and to attack Americans. And so I don't know that very many people realize it. It sounds like, strange bedfellows to say the least, but it's true that Islamists will sometimes actually get together with these white supremacists and they'll come up with some plans and strategies. Last word.
You're right. It's an alliance.
Right.
And because they both have the same goal in mind, as I mentioned in the Constitution, to alter or abolish the current form of government. That's mm-hmm. right in the Declaration of Independence. Mm-hmm. That's what they want to do. Yes. They want to alter or abolish our current form of government and mm-hmm. replace it with one that they consider more fair, more equal, like more diverse, so on and so on, less white supremacist, however you want to describe it. And that's why they're natural allies, because we have the same goal.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I think people need to wake up to that. And I hope that they'll come out, if there was a connection with what you believe to be these white supremacists that went in and destroyed that kosher grocery store. I hope if there are Islamists involved that will actually come out, because there is that alliance. Philip Haney, thank you so much for sharing your insights on the Denice Gary Show today. We really appreciate you. We appreciate all you do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to a commercial break. Let's go to our Frugati's commercial. And please, when you go to Frugati's, right here in the city of Bakersfield on Coffee Road, tell the owner, Ralph Frugaletti, you heard all about his fabulous restaurant on the Denice Gary Show.
I want to tell you about Buddy's Italian Restaurant. Very few locations here provide seating outside in front of a fabulous water fountain with an atmosphere that is reminiscent to me of eating outdoors in Venice. This is real Italian food by real Italians. And what makes it even more so is owner Ralph Frugaletti, who nearly a quarter century ago brought a wood fire oven from Milan, Italy to make, like his mother, fresh homemade bread and pizzas. Moreover, Frugati's Restaurant offers you not only the very best in Southern Italian cooking, even importing the finest ingredients for authentic Italian food, including a fitness menu. After all, Ralph has represented the United States and Italy, competing in the Master Championship Games. He knows all the right food for good fitness, so check out the menu. After today's broadcast, run over to Frugati's Italian Restaurant and Catering at 600 Coffee Road here in Bakersfield. And after a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday service, stop into Frugati's for a great lunch. I'll see you there, and tell Mr. Ralph Frugaletti that Denice sent you. Salute. Buon appetito.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about Anatase products. This is a forward-leaning manufacturer. It provides all kinds of needs that are represented by the major defense and aerospace companies. So Anatase Products is the organization, is the company that you want to call 661-822-6873. Again, they supply and distribute hardware to the major defense companies and aerospace companies around the nation. And they have the ability to handle all of your top secret issues and applications. So again, give Scott Baker, the president of Anatase Products, a call. Tell him what you need to have done and they'll get it done. 661 area code 822-6873. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to the Denice Gary Show. Again, support this broadcast. It's coming up on the end of the year. We need to hear from you. If you could help keep us moving forward, we need your tax-deductible contribution. To make a tax-deductible contribution, write a check or send a money order to the Middle East Initiative, Post Office Box 82162, Bakersfield, California, 93380. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.